On June 25th, three mysterious Chinese students aged between 30 and 49 and from different backgrounds appeared on a mountain in Busan, South Korea. They were focused on a massive site at the Busan Operations Base of the South Korean Navy's Operation Command, the U.S. nuclear-powered aircraft carrier USS Roosevelt. This aircraft carrier had arrived in Busan on June 22nd to participate in the first trilateral multi-domain joint military exercise between the U.S., Japan, and South Korea. The three students decided to capture this rare scene with a drone. They launched the drone, and it hovered over the South Korean Navy Operations Command Base, recording a 5-minute video. Their actions were quickly noticed by vigilant patrolling soldiers. The South Korean police responded swiftly, arresting the three on the spot for violating the Military Facilities Protection Act. The police found that the drone footage included clear images of not only the aircraft carrier but also the operations command base. Coincidentally, on that same day, South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol had boarded the Roosevelt to meet with officers. Given that the appearance of the aircraft carrier was limited to the public that day, the South Korean police were initially unsure how to charge the three for their filming. Instead, they began investigating their unauthorized use of a drone. The suspects claimed they were just curious and wanted to film, but the police were not convinced. They started to check the suspects' call records, trying to determine if they had any other motives or if they were connected to any other countries or organizations. The Roosevelt was accompanied by the destroyers USS Halsey and USS Daniel Inouye during its stop in Busan. The timing of the unauthorized filming raised suspicions about whether these students could be spies. On the surface, these three students seemed like typical rule breakers with reckless behavior, but it was no coincidence. Over the past decade, China's aggressive military expansion and intense domestic propaganda have led many young people to believe that China's military is invincible. They often feel entitled to special treatment wherever they go. Some even think that filming foreign military bases makes them seem impressive. This mindset is incredibly naive and a result of being brainwashed by the Chinese Communist Party. Ironically, these individuals cannot even get close to restricted military areas in their own country. This reckless filming is not an isolated incident. There was a scandal involving a Chinese drone that brazenly filmed the U.S. nuclear-powered aircraft carrier USS Reagan in Japan, with 4 photos released on April 4th. Using drones, they spied on the Reagan, the amphibious command ship USS Blue Ridge, several destroyers, and even the coastline and interior of the Yokosuka base. Prior to this, another suspected Chinese drone had the audacity to fly low and film the Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Force's destroyer Izumo at the Yokosuka base in broad daylight. The video and photos quickly went viral on Chinese video platform Bilibili and were soon reposted on American social media platform X. In the video, the drone blatantly landed on the Izumo's flight deck before nonchalantly taking off again. The Japanese Ministry of Defense admitted on May 8th that the video was real and announced plans to strengthen defenses, but public anger and unease were already high. The Izumo is especially significant not only because it is a mini aircraft carrier set to carry F-35 stealth fighters for the Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force, but also because the Yokosuka base is a military-restricted area where unauthorized drone flights are strictly prohibited. This series of provocative actions reminds people of a chilling detail from World War II. Japanese embassy officials and spies secretly monitored the U.S. fleet's activities near Pearl Harbor before the attack. Today, history seems to be repeating itself, but this time the spies are Chinese, and the targets are the U.S. and Japanese militaries. Similar incidents have also occurred in the United States. Key West in Florida is a famous vacation destination. Nearby is the restricted area of the Nass Key West Naval Base, a place not to be taken lightly. Over a year ago, 3 Chinese students studying in the U.S. decided to take photos there, directly running into trouble. These were not just any students. They were all fully funded by Chinese government scholarships. This special treatment is rare for most people, yet they engaged in illegal activities. On October 5th last year, these 3 were sentenced to prison for illegally photographing the military base, effectively ruining their study experience in the U.S. Take 27-year-old Liao Luyo, for example. On the morning of December 26, 2022, at around 6:50 a.m., he first walked along the fence outside the Key West Naval Air Station. Then he sneaked into the base from a rocky area on the shore and started taking photos inside. Unsurprisingly, he was quickly spotted by military police. They confiscated his phone and arrested him on the spot, notifying the FBI. The investigation revealed that the photos he took were of important military facilities, making this a serious offense. Consequently, Liao was sentenced to 12 months in prison. Then there were Wang Yuhao and Zhang Jielun, who committed a similar act. On January 4, 2023, at 8:30 a.m., they tried to drive into the U.S. Navy's Sigsbee Annex, a highly restricted military area. As expected, the guards at the gate stopped them and told them to turn around, but these two were stubborn. Instead of listening, they hit the gas and drove straight in. They recklessly roamed around the restricted area for half an hour until Navy security caught them. When searched, cameras and phones were found on them. At this point, they admitted everything. Wang Yuhao and Zhang Jielun had been warned by the guards that the area was off-limit and knew that what they were doing was illegal, but they didn't care and wanted to show off. Their footage included clear images of military facilities of Fleming Key, which was undeniable evidence. One of them got a 12-month sentence, and the other got 9 months, which was considered lenient. In wartime, this would have been considered espionage, and they could have faced execution. These government-sponsored students are incredibly bold. If you think about it, their arrogance likely comes from their privileged backgrounds. The expressions on their faces in the photos suggest they feel entitled, as if the world owes them something. These are not ordinary students. They come from families with generations of red nobility, meaning they are either children of high-ranking officials or wealthy business families, born with silver spoons in their mouth. They have money and power and are top students. Such individuals are bound to be arrogant. They are used to being untouchable at home and carry this attitude abroad. However, in the U.S., the law treats everyone equally, no matter how privileged they are. Only when they're met with the consequences of their actions will they understand where the boundaries are. On July 8th, a 26-year-old Chinese graduate student named Shi Fengyun from the University of Minnesota was tried in federal district court in Norfolk, Virginia. His crime was filming U.S. military facilities. He pleaded guilty to a misdemeanor charge of using a drone to film U.S. military infrastructure. On January 6 this year, he used a drone to film Newport News Shipbuilding, the only U.S. shipyard capable of building super aircraft carriers. Although the prosecution did not accuse him of spying for a foreign government, they cited the Espionage Act, which prohibits photographing military facilities in defense airspace and using unregistered aircraft to film important military installations. Each charge carries a prison sentence of up to 2 years and a fine of up to $100,000. The court is expected to announce the sentencing results in late August or September. The case of Shi Fengyun highlights the serious issue of Chinese students engaging in suspicious intelligence-gathering activities in the U.S. Despite his claim that he was merely curious, this excuse was not convincing to the U.S. government. After all, a Chinese citizen traveling to a crucial U.S. military site and insisting on using a drone to film, even in bad weather, is highly suspicious. Shi Fengyun is not an isolated case. In recent years, China's government-led overseas talent programs have used various means to recruit researchers and students in the U.S., aiming to acquire advanced technology and military intelligence. Against this backdrop, any misstep by Chinese students can easily be linked to espionage activities. From another perspective, America's heightened vigilance towards Chinese students reflects the intensifying technological war between China and the U.S. In March last year, Deutsche Welle reported a shocking news story. Chinese government-sponsored students must sign a loyalty agreement to the Communist Party before going abroad. Once signed, these students are considered part of the party and must serve its interests. These students often come from military academies or universities like Beihang University and Harbin Institute of Technology, which have ties to military industries. Essentially, these individuals are selected by the party as special agents from the start. On the surface, they conduct research, but behind the scenes, they report any new findings to China immediately. Every detail about instruments, equipment, and materials must be reported to the party, which quickly replicates the U.S. labs. More alarmingly, they can gather information on U.S. research directions. Research projects are often funded by the Department of Defense, or NIH, making them highly classified. Despite being students, they have access to the sensitive data. They also know who the key figures are and any weaknesses they might have. For instance, if a prominent professor has a quarrel with his wife, suddenly a young woman appears to comfort him. If someone is short on cash, money and gifts promptly arrive. Step by step, they deceive people into giving away their research. Americans are very vigilant about these students. They can quickly tell who's a genuine student and who is causing trouble. If they find anyone with a background linked to the Chinese military, they can deport them in no time. American authorities check the phones and computers at the airport. They find records of these people praising the Chinese Communist Party and criticizing the U.S. on social media like Weibo, WeChat, and TikTok. Another way is through artificial intelligence, which helps U.S. Customs quickly identify suspicious individuals from vast amounts of information. On April 28 this year, the Chinese embassy had to admit on its website that nearly 300 Chinese people had been deported upon entry in the past 3 years, including over 70 students. Even Chinese officials invited to visit the U.S. were thoroughly scrutinized. Clearly, these 300 people were seen as spies by the Americans. Since infiltration into the U.S. became difficult, the CCP turned its attention to Canada, sending students to gather intelligence there. However, Canadians were not fooled either, and took similar actions against these students. On January 4th, the Federal Court of Canada denied entry to a Chinese student suspected of being a spy. This student, named Li Yuekang, was admitted to the prestigious University of Waterloo for a PhD in mechanical and mechatronics engineering, focusing on microfluidic technology. He had confidently declared that he wanted to take his knowledge back to China to improve public health. However, the judge found that his alma mater had extensive ties to the Chinese military and that microfluidic technology was crucial to China's biopharmaceutical industry. If he returned to China with this knowledge, it would significantly benefit the CCP. Therefore, the judge refused his entry. This ruling effectively blocked the path for Chinese students trying to steal technology in Canada. If their domestic schools are linked to the military industry, they can forget about pursuing advanced studies in Canada. China's plans to exploit Canada for technological gains was completely thwarted. In fact, the entire Western world has long seen through the CCP's tactic of sending students to steal technology. It is becoming increasingly difficult for China to infiltrate the West. Some of these students are children of high-ranking officials used to being domineering at home, and they try to play the same tricks in the U.S. They even bully other Chinese people protesting against the Chinese Communist Party. However, in a law-based society like the U.S., relying on the CCP's power to bully others is out of the question. From these students' actions, we can clearly see the flaws in the education system under communist rule. The lack of separation between the state and the party, a weak understanding of the rule of law, and rampant nationalism lead to young people being indoctrinated from a young age. They do not understand the importance of respecting the law or the need for mutual respect between countries. They wrongly believe that having some money and power allows them to act recklessly worldwide. If they had received a proper education, learned to think independently, and developed an awareness of the rule of law, they wouldn't engage in such wrongful behavior abroad. The Communist Party's brainwashing of generation after generation of young people is undoubtedly a significant cause of these problems. Last September, the Wall Street Journal reported that some Chinese citizens entering U.S. military facilities and other sensitive areas has drawn the attention of U.S. authorities. There have been over 100 such incidents, prompting concern from Congress and the FBI. These individuals usually claim to have mistakenly wandered into restricted zones, but U.S. officials suspect that some might intentionally be gathering intelligence. Since proving espionage is difficult, U.S. authorities often resort to short-term detention for trespassing. Some believe that this could be a new strategy by the CCP, sending numerous people to repeatedly attempt entering restricted areas. Even if only a few succeed, they might still obtain valuable information. The U.S. is working to address this challenge, but due to the complex legal and diplomatic issues involved, it's hard to completely eliminate this problem in the short term. China seems willing to use anything, even tourists, as tools for gathering intelligence and causing disruption. If there have been over 100 caught, imagine how many more have gone undetected. The actions of the CCP have completely deviated from the basic norms of the international community. They pose threats not only in military, economic, and technological domains, but also try to infiltrate through civilian exchanges. What were once simple academic and tourism exchanges are now potentially tools for the CCP's gain. This approach is bound to cause resentment and opposition, ultimately harming China's own interests. Through various talent programs, the CCP sends students willing to serve its agenda abroad to engage in intelligence gathering. This not only tarnishes the image of Chinese students as a whole, but also exacerbates distrust and conflicts between China and the U.S. The repeated attempts by Chinese citizens posing as tourists to test U.S. military boundaries are particularly alarming. If such actions succeed, the consequences could be dire. While it is challenging for U.S. authorities to hold each individual accountable, the heightened vigilance reflects the seriousness of this issue. This concerns not only U.S. national security, but also further strains U.S.-China relations.